Mastermind, Strategist for Hire. Written by Clouds. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 18, Preparations. Shigaraki scowled as he looked at the new recruits. Yeah, Sensei said it was a good idea to use the hero killer's ideals to grow their numbers. But he just didn't see why. Maybe if Stain's ideals brought in more 6-foot-tall behemoths like Muscular, sure. But a schoolgirl and an emo? This was the League of Villains, not Disney Channel. Go away. He glared at them from behind the hand on his face. I can already tell you're the kind of people I hate the most. Don't be hasty, Tomura Shigaraki, Kurogiri said. I'm sure these two will add greatly to our cause. Hi, I'm Himiko Toga, the schoolgirl said excitedly. I loved Mr. Statey. He looked so beat up when he died. It was so cute. She did a little dance in place. And you've worked with Mind-chan, right? He's cute too. I remember when he could barely hold a knife and asked me to teach him. It was adorable. You taught Mastermind to fight? The emo asked incredulously. Jiron laughed. Yeah, I was surprised too. But this cute little lady is the main suspect in a string of exsanguination murders. Mastermind sure does have an eye for quality. Shigaraki glared at the emo. At least she has some manners to introduce herself. What about you? What's your name? The emo returned the glare. Right now, I'm going by Dobby. That's no good. I meant your real name. You'll know it when you need to know it, Dobby said coldly. In any case, my new purpose is to carry out the hero killer's will. That wasn't what I asked you, Patchwork. Shigaraki scratched at his neck. Why is everyone so hung up on Stain anyway? He's all I ever hear about. Every damn day. It's really pissing me off. He lunged toward the two who made to fight back, but Kurogiri warped their hands so their attacks went nowhere. Calm yourself, Tomura Shigaraki. If you want to succeed, we must increase our numbers. Our chance is at hand. He leaned close. We must use the hero killer's ideology to further our own ends. Shigaraki stalked away. I'm leaving. He slammed the door behind him. Toga smiled. I really thought he was going to kill us for a sec. I believe he knows what he has to do, Kurogiri said calmly. Shall we get back to you about recruitment at a later date? Shoto stood awkwardly by the fountain in the mall courtyard. Yayorozu had invited him to go with the rest of the class, and he hadn't been able to think of a good excuse in time. The rest of the class had split off into groups of 2 and 3, leaving him alone. Yaomomo had invited him to come with her and Jiro to look at swimsuits, but he already had one, so he opted to stay behind. Maybe if he left quickly, no one would question it. Hey, aren't you one of those students from UA? Shoto saw a teenager in a ratty black hoodie, but he couldn't see his face. You were the second-place winner at the sports festival, right? Shoto grimaced as the stranger put an arm around his shoulder. You're pretty powerful. Please get away from me. What can I say? I'm just a huge fan. The man didn't move his arm. I can't believe I'm running into you again. It makes me think it might not be a coincidence. Shoto's eyes widened slightly as the man put a hand around his throat, keeping his middle finger lifted. It feels like destiny. But I guess from your perspective, we haven't met since the attack on UA. The man smiled at him, allowing Shoto to see his face. Tomura Shigaraki, the head of the League of Villains, with a 5-point disintegration quirk. Shoto swallowed suddenly. The hand around his throat felt much more threatening. Why don't we sit down and chat for a while, Shoto Todoroki? Shigaraki led Shoto over to a nearby bench, and they sat down with Shigaraki's hand still at Shoto's throat. I could just freeze you right here, you know, Shoto said. Shigaraki laughed. If you tried, I'd just put my finger down and the first thing to go would be your throat. Here, with all these people, a hero would come catch you. Shigaraki shrugged. Sure, but how many of these smiling sheep could I take out before that happened? I'm fast. I could probably take out 20, 30, maybe even more before a pro finally showed up. These idiots, they assume that everyone has their same morals, but any one of them could use their quirk and start a massacre right now. They think laws and rules will protect them. They're convinced nothing bad could ever happen to them. What's your point? Shigaraki shrugged. That's just it. I don't know. I hate pretty much everything, but right now, the hero killer pisses me off the most. Have you ever hated something so much you just want to kill it? My father, Shoto thought, but bit his tongue before he could say that. Wasn't the hero killer one of your men? Not technically, Shigaraki replied, but that's what the media made it seem like. And now everyone's obsessed with him. Everything I've done, releasing Nomus on Hosu, the attack on UA, even killing All Might, it's all been overshadowed by that stupid hero killer and his stupid ideology. In the end, all he did was try to get rid of what he hated, same as me. So why is everyone so obsessed with him? I don't know, Shoto said slowly. Maybe it's because he convinces everyone to hate what he does? His ideology makes sense. Not all heroes deserve the title, and I think maybe everyone knows that deep down. They're just too afraid to say it. Or maybe they don't want to believe it, so they just let heroes keep taking power and abusing the system. Stain was a maniac. But he didn't destroy things just because it sounded fun. He was trying to make a change, show how corrupt the hero system really is. Shoto's voice had dropped to a whisper. That's why I agree with him. Shigaraki looked at him strangely. You have some strange opinions for a hero student. Shoto just stared at the ground helplessly. He hadn't really meant to say all that. But maybe it was because Shigaraki was already a villain that Shoto thought maybe the guy would understand. Shigaraki wouldn't judge him for hating heroes because he hated them too. Shoto wondered what had happened to make Shigaraki hate All Might so much. Could it have been something similar to why Shoto hated Endeavor? So, you think people like the hero killer so much because he proved the corruption of hero society? Shoto nodded carefully and Shigaraki smiled. It all makes sense now. Why All Might pissed me off so much. Why the hero killer made me so angry. It was right in front of me. All Might was the reason why these people smile and think they're safe. Because heroes will always protect them. They trust them when really, heroes don't save everyone. And they don't deserve our trust. Shigaraki released Shoto's throat and looked at him. I don't need to change my ways after all. I just need to prove how fragile society's sense of safety really is. Thank you, Todoroki. You've been a big help. He stood. Don't try to follow me, hero. If you try, I'll get angry. Shoto watched him leave until he disappeared in the crowd. I'm not a hero, he muttered. Toga hugged Izuku the moment he walked into the bar and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Mine-chan, how are you? It's been so long. Izuku laughed and pried her hands away. Himiko, you just saw me a few weeks ago. It feels like an eternity, she pouted. Welcome, Mastermind, Kurigiri said. Can I get you a drink? Sure, I'll take a cranberry juice if you have any. Kurigiri nodded, and a laugh came from the corner. You have no qualms about murdering heroes, and yet you're worried about the legal drinking age? Dabi scoffed. Some villain. Izuku raised an eyebrow. It's not so much that I'm concerned about the legal drinking age as it is that I make a living with my brain and I prefer not to have anything slowing it down. He turned back to the bar. You're Dobby, right? Cremation quirk? Yeah, Dobby said and took a seat next to Izuku at the bar. How'd you know? I make it my business to know everyone in the underground, especially if I'm going to be working with them. Izuku said simply, I've had my eye on you for a while now. Dobby looked vaguely concerned, but it was hard to tell many facial expressions with his scars. Kurogiri set a glass of cranberry juice down on the bar, and Izuku pulled down his mask, letting it pool around his neck. Whoa, Mastermind, Dobby said. Aren't you concerned about people seeing your face? Izuku smiled. I'm concerned about heroes seeing my face. As odd as it sounds, my identity is not completely unknown in the underground. Jiran and Himiko know who I am, for example, and quite a few people have seen my face. Dobby raised an eyebrow. And you're not concerned about anyone snitching to the cops? Izuku shook his head. I was at first, but normally by the time people know my face, they're already familiar with my reputation. He took a sip of his juice. I've got a bit of a temper. If anyone screws me over, I screw them over twice as hard. There was a gang a few months back, the Blue Dogs. Have you heard of them? Dobby nodded. They're dead now, aren't they? Izuku nodded gleefully. They tried to threaten me into working with them rather than paying me. I gave them their plans, but then tracked down all the enemies the gang had and made sure they knew the weaknesses of every single member. They didn't last a week. Dobby shivered. Remind me not to piss you off. Izuku smiled. If I have to remind you, it's already too late. Shigaraki walked into the room. Thanks for coming, Mastermind. It's always more fun when you're my player, too. Not a problem, Shigaraki. You pay well and your jobs are always interesting. So what do you have in mind? Shigaraki sat at the bar. We're going to show how fragile society really is by attacking a UA training camp, kidnapping one of the students, and turning them to villainy. Izuku thought for a moment. That might be difficult. Do you have a plan in place? Shigaraki shook his head. We have a spy, but not one I'm willing to pull out yet. He'll be leaking the location to us as soon as they arrive. Izuku nodded. All right, then. Who do you have in mind? Shigaraki smiled and pulled a photo from his pocket. Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku frowned and took the photo. It was of Katsuki chained up on the podium at the sports festival. He'd taken offense that Todoroki hadn't used his fire in their fight, so his win didn't mean anything. Izuku got where he was coming from, but at the same time, Todoroki didn't use his fire against anyone, so Katsuki really shouldn't have taken it personally. Yeah, no, that's a terrible idea. Dobby laughed as Shigaraki stared at Izuku in shock. But he already acts villainous. I know, Izuku laughed. The problem is that he's too stubborn. You'll never be able to get Katsuki to be a villain because he doesn't see himself as one. He sees himself as a hero, and no amount of threatening or bribery is going to convince him otherwise. He let the group digest that information before continuing. If you're really serious about recruiting a hero student, I'd suggest going after Shoto Todoroki instead. Out of the corner of his eye, Izuku saw Dobby tense slightly and smiled. The number one hero's son? Shigaraki asked in confusion. What makes you think we'll be able to turn him? Take it from someone who used to want to be a hero. Izuku smiled as the group reacted to that. People don't turn to villainy without a reason, and Todoroki has one of the best reasons I've ever seen. He was abused by a hero for years, and no one ever saved him. Who would ever believe the number one hero was guilty of child abuse? Izuku lifted his glass to take a drink. And besides, we have his brother to help us convince him. The others looked confused as Dabi stared at him in shock. How did you know? The strong fire quirk, bright teal eyes, a hatred of all heroes, but especially Endeavor? Izuku shrugged. It wasn't that hard to put together. I told you, I'd had my eye on you for a while. He looked Dabi in the eyes. So what do you say, Tuya Todoroki? Are you ready to see your brother? End of chapter.